Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business List, your source for stories inside the party, across the country, and around the world. We are LP Alliance, an intercaucus coalition rebuilding and revolutionizing the Libertarian Party. My name is Amanda Griffiths. I have the hiccups, so this is going to be fun. I am joined in my hiccuping by Jake Porter. I am joined by Rose Levitt, but I'm not joined by Kyle Davis. He's just here and has given me the hiccups. Everyone, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good to be back.
Fantastic. We have
good stuff.
So much to get to because
It'll be a long one.
It is going to be a long one because, first of all, we did not have our typical stream last week because so many things were happening, and we broadcasted something that was supposed to happen but didn't happen. Now it's happened, and so now we have a backlog of all of these things that have happened. You guys are going to have such a blast listening to me fight the hiccups through this cast. It was fine until we started again. I've had them all afternoon. So
it'll be basically one of those things where she's in the middle of her instances and everything will be okay.
The thing is, I will be trying to make some emotive point or something, or be threatening or intimidating, and all of a sudden be like, anyway.
Mr. Gorbachev.
Everyone's just going to
tear down this wall.
Everyone's going to make assumptions. They'll think that you've just had too much to drink or something.
There we go. Yes, it's the drinking.
Gotta
we
get that
have
under control.
Last week we streamed what we thought was going to be Angela McArdle's second big announcement. That second big announcement ended up happening. Was it only yesterday? I believe it was only yesterday that this happened. Now, Angela McArdle's first big announcement is that she's chair of the Mises Caucus. The second big announcement is that she has a website that she claimed was live at the time of the stream. It was not live, but a site about libertarian unity. And so she's creating these relationships through the Mises Caucus with mostly right-leaning state socialists, the Maha crowd, the MAGA crowd, all of that good stuff. We also, in that time frame, had a couple LNC meetings, the first of which had to do with a vote on whether to debate on whether to censure LP New Hampshire and LP Colorado. The Libertarian National Committee voted against debating on that censure. So, first of all, I think we need to discuss that. Debate can take a long time. And so there's always a temptation to move past debate and to just go to the vote. In this case, there wasn't any debate, so there couldn't be any vote. What exactly is going on with the tendency to just try and move past debate, and what even happened with that, with the motion to censure, and whether it's actually going to be heard or not?
Well, I think part of why it's tempting is because there's always the concern that people are going to use the opportunity to try to basically filibuster the decision. Especially if they allow public comment, there's a lot of temptation to just say that they're going to skip public comment. But even amongst just the LNC, there is enough division and differences of opinion amongst the current LNC that, there's always that concern that someone is just going to try to waste their time with pointless arguments or with making unnecessary motions. But also, I think this whole thing was an excellent example of why we don't want to become over-reliant on technology. So they were using Excel, or maybe I assume it was Excel, could have been a different program, to automatically tally up the votes. Apparently it malfunctioned and gave them an incorrect total.
It was Google Sheets.
Oh, okay. Well, same difference, really.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the chair did not need to. The chair decided to abstain, which is pretty common unless the vote would actually change the outcome. It looked like, based on the total that was being displayed, the chair's vote would not change the outcome. However, it actually would have, and had the chair voted yes on having the debate, they would have had it.
Right. So again, this is not a motion. That was not a vote on whether to censure. it was a vote on whether to hear debate on whether to censure. Now, the argument has been made, well, Stephen Akela usually doesn't vote. That's not always true. There were several instances, the most recent Libertarian National Committee meeting where Stephen Akela's vote did not matter, and he did still vote symbolically. So he clearly does vote sometimes. He chose not to vote with this particularly contentious question, which leaves many of us wanting. Jake, what say you about this vote? Should it be held again on whether to move to debate? Should we just move on?
I'm ready just to move on from New Hampshire and Colorado, not hear about them, not speak about them, not visit their states, and hope I don't have to see any of them at the next national convention. Now, what they're wanting to do at this point, if you had the votes, it would be one thing, but what they're wanting to do is just to get us involved in this continuous debate where they can continue to talk and be heard and be loud and be out there and visible. And at some point, I think they just kind of go away if everyone just quits paying attention to them. It's like a child having a tantrum. That's exactly what these people are. They're children having tantrums, and they just want to get our attention. So I'm ready to move on from them.
Kyle, if we ignore New Hampshire and Colorado, will they vanish from the map?
It worked for Ohio. Anyone remember Ohio?
I thought it was all Ohio.
I thought Ohio was hell, according to the Zoomers. There is that an outdated meme. I don't know. I'm old.
It fell into the ground. It's gone.
Okay.
Kyle, if we ignore New Hampshire, will it go away, or will Sarah still have a home?
Oh, I think Sarah would be homeless. She'd have to go back to Boston. So I honestly believe that Ben Weir is trying to put in some effort inside to tone down New Hampshire's atrocious, I don't even know if you can call it messaging. But the problem is that thus far, Ben Weir's had the effectiveness of a wet sponge against a volcano. In that he was set on fire, all of the water was steamed out of him, and no one knows where he went.
Not very punk rock, being afraid to speak up.
He's emo,
lot.
not punk rock.
Okay. Well, no, they have.
No, he's got Punks for Liberty.
Yeah, Punks for Liberty.
Yeah, but he's
that's
emo
the thing.
caucus.
That's the thing.
Let's be
The
real.
emos and the punks were usually at odds. Like I
Yeah.
was part of the punk scene as a teenager, and we used to make fun of the emo kids. So
Yeah,
pick a lane.
and he's the emo ANCAP. Exactly.
There's
so somebody
a plague.
I would have made fun of in high school.
There is a plague of ineffectuality that has beset the Libertarian Party on many levels. It is similar to my plague of hiccups, but even more annoying. What's happening here is that people are kind of making very angry faces at one person or another. When I was young, like very, very young, and I wanted to convey my displeasure with my parents, but I couldn't actually, mount any threats against them. I would just say, I have an angry face, and then I would do anything. And I feel like there's a lot of I have an angry face that's happening within the Libertarian Party, and nothing is actually being done. And we'll get to a few more instances of this as we go on this evening. But yes, so there was a vote on whether to move to debate on whether to censure LPNH and LP Colorado. Now, I personally don't care about whether LPNH and LP Colorado get censored, right? I don't think that they will. I would like to see other actions taken. Censure, to me, doesn't mean anything. But it's very important to debate these issues because we are an ideological party. We don't just vote on policy. We defend our positions. We back our viewpoints up with arguments, and that's important when we need to know, okay, where do leadership stand on things, right? That's all that we are, in a way, is debating on ideas. And there are jokes about this to this effect. So moving to debate is very important on just about anything. And I even said the other night when we had the votes on whether to accept the Angela files, that should have gone to debate too. I supported what happened, and it would have made it much longer if we had gone to debate. I still think that we should have gone to debate. To me, debate is important. And the fact that there was so much fear around whether even to hear argument is not particularly promising, especially in this era when libertarians, we need to be stronger than ever, and we need to be out of the head of so many fights that are happening. If we can't even get ourselves together internally to defend what we believe in, I don't know how we plan to do it out there. So I'm not sure. Am I the only one who cares about this going to debate?
Well, I think for the Angela files, you call them, that one there, that was a filibustering attempt. They had their debate in executive session. That was people that just wanted more time. They had 48 hours. I read that thing within like an hour, I think it was. They had time to read it. What they wanted to do is delay so they could get word back from their kings and queens at Mises to tell them what to think. That's all it was, to tell them what talking points to put out. And because they didn't have that time, well, they were left to just, say nothing. And so they, instead of actually making an argument about why this report shouldn't be released, we didn't have time to read it. Well, they had time to read it. They were just trying a delay tactic. They didn't debate any facts that were in there. They didn't object to any facts that were in there because they couldn't. And it's
Right.
a typical thing we see from them all the time.
I've already seen some of the talking points that have come out, like they're focusing on the fact that, like, at one point it mentions that Angela hired her neighbor, but then it's like, but buried deep down in the report, it says that she was within her rights to do that. Like, just basic, like these little technicalities that are meant to cast doubt on the report by implying that, oh, it must just contain all these things that don't really matter in an effort to make her look bad. Like, I think they're just really banking on the fact that most of their supporters are probably not going to bother to read it, and they're just going to be told what it supposedly says.
Go for it, Kyle.
I read half of that report aloud while Amanda read the other half of that report aloud. That report is incredibly damning. It's not close. It's not freaking questionable on tons of issues. SVS was a problem. Freedom Calls was a problem. The fact that Freedom Calls had a 5% return on investment, not 105%, not that they returned everything plus 5%, a 5% return on investment, a 95% loss is pathetic. You could give this to a 16-year-old in high school and they would have a better response and return rate. And they would have cost less. And they probably would have also made more calls. And fewer of those calls would probably be after 8 o'clock and before 7 o'clock. Before 7 a.m. and after 8 p.m.
They failed to pay attention to time zones, apparently.
Yeah.
I would be pretty pissed if the LP texted or called me at 7 a.m. on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and not to mention they used the text banking to promote the Mises Caucus in California. They used party resources to promote an inter-party caucus. There is Justin O'Donnell's in the comments makes a few comments there, but I will say this report is not complete because it does not go into the Kennedy aspect of it, the Kennedy PACs, in much detail. I think there is a bigger scandal in that to be looked into. I believe that neighbor that was paid was also paid by a Kennedy PAC. So that does tie back. There's more things that still need to be looked at, and I'm happy to do that. I think it was outside of the scope of what the committee was investigating, though.
Right.
But I think there's definitely more, and there's going to be an additional report, I think, coming out from them. They're still looking over some other stuff.
Was about to mention that, yes, there's going to be an investigation into the credit card debt, and I think the KBF as well. Jake, you obviously, you were interviewed for this report, at least that's what it said. How do you feel about the way that the investigation was conducted from what you know? Did this feel like a vindication at all, or was it sort of like that not enough has been done, as Justin says?
Well, no, it was a vindication. I mean, I did say that these corporations, the Swing Vote Strategist and the Freedom Calls LLC, were created by Austin Paget, Angela McArdle's domestic partner, and that their household financially benefited from contracts that the LP had made and contracts with the LP that Angela had executed without informing the committee. That's all in there. There are some things, other conflicts of interest that other members had that Justin's pointing out in the comments. That was at least just put in the report. People can draw their own conclusions. No, the Libertarian Party did not take action on that stuff. It is important for the members to see, though, and for the scope of this being as far as McArdle and what she did, yes, I think that was very good. I was happy to see them look into the success and failures, if you will, of the text banking campaign and the phone call campaign, and also putting in the fact that it made phone calls to promote the Mises Caucus, and also, they didn't appear to try to hide anything in there, and they did show how she lied to the committee. She was asked about the swing vote strategist, why it had the same address, and she said, "Oh, it must be an error," or something along those lines. At that point, she was lying to the committee. And so that was important that we got to see that documentation, that I did not have access to any of that whenever I did my report in January.
Since Jake is talking.
Means death to kingmakers, guys. That is our unofficial LP Alliance flag, and it must be unofficial because we don't have offices. We don't have.
Should I get that as a tattoo?
You should actually. That's going to be actually like our blood pact before the Grand Rapids Revolutions. We will all have leather jackets and death to kingmakers tattoos.
We're totally not a cult, guys. Okay.
We're not a cult. We just have a flag.
Yeah, it's safe. You can join us. We're not a cult. We're friendly.
You can get this flag, this fantastic death to kingmakers legend I have behind me, online at our store at lp-alliance.com. You can see all of the links scrolling down, including our unofficial things that we are unofficially sponsoring. Within the report, it was noted that charges will not be pursued currently by the LNC because money. Because the best way to avoid anyone pressing charges against you is to take so much of their money that they can't afford to press charges against you for taking so much money. And isn't that great? The perfect crime. Should the LNC pursue charges anyhow? There was some talk about how maybe they might fundraise for it, or they would enlist pro bono counsel. Where should the LNC go next as it pertains to actual criminal charges?
Right, because that was my first thought. I'm like, okay, so basically the message they're sending here is that you can totally run for an officer position, get elected on the LNC, engage in blatant self-dealing, but then as long as you run up enough credit card debt and waste enough of their money, they won't be able to pursue charges against you and you'll likely get away with it. Like, this is a very bad message to be sending. Now, I understand, like, okay, that doesn't solve the problem, which is that, yeah, we still don't have money to pursue charges. However, yeah, I think if there's one thing that the LP needs to be fundraising for, it's hiring an attorney and hiring an actual forensic auditing firm in order to gather evidence and present this in court. And then, from what I understand, like there was some conflicting information that we got. Just to file charges, like criminal charges, like or at least to file a police report, we would need to have a lawyer look into things for us, but that part was unclear.
Right, which is good, because that would be ridiculous if you needed to have a lawyer, in fact, to pursue charges or file charges, ask for charges.
I thought we just had to have a lawyer gathered or have a lawyer look into things and then file a police report, in which case they would decide whether to pursue criminal charges. Because yeah, from what I understand, like, embezzlement is a federal crime. So, I mean, the state is notoriously bad at actually enforcing its laws, but
Kyle, you like to get away with things. What do you think about this refusal, or reluctance rather, to spend money on pressing charges? Justin makes a good point in the comments, which is that the report said, well, it's uncollectible, right? McArdle does not have the means for restitution, essentially. Do you think that's a good argument? Should there be charges pursued anyhow?
I am of the opinion that money was stolen not just from the LNC, but from what the LNC represents and from the people who donated. $47,000 relative to the amount we usually take in per year is not that much. It's not nothing. It's 5% ish, but it's difficult to say that it is worth going after from a purely monetary perspective. However, libertarians, even the largest government supporting libertarians, believe that one of the most important parts of the government's job is enforcement of contracts and stopping or punishing violations of the NAP, the non-aggression principle. Fraud is a violation of the NAP. From my perspective, where I'm sitting here, Angela McArdle is not a libertarian because she does not follow the NAP. So we have someone who has come in and defrauded the party, has taken the money from our donors, has destroyed trust in the party, has destroyed trust in the movement, and the $47,000 isn't the issue. The issue is that at our core, we are porcupines. We are not supposed to. You're a kitten. You don't even have fucking spines.
Kittens have spines?
Wrong kind of spine. Kittens have spine, not spines.
Are
Spikes?
kittens Machiavellian? Jeez.
Yes, they are very Machiavellian. They have spiky hair, especially.
So we have something that we have said repeatedly is the only thing we believe that government violence could ever be truthfully used for. And we have someone who has violated that to the highest degree possible. And I believe we should go after them. As such, I fully intend to put my money into the fund for the legal offense fund to go directly after McArdle on this.
Right. Yeah.
I
I mean, if
personally,
there's one thing I would fund or I would donate to. Yeah. Because again, like you said, we need to restore trust. We need to have people who actually want to renew their memberships because they know that the money is going to go to actually promoting our message and helping elect libertarians at the local level and whatnot.
that's true, Chris. It's on our docket to talk about. That's a breaking news thing. We're seeing it start to show up on Twitter. There's some videos coming up. Israel has officially begun bombing Iran, which means there is a decent chance the United States in the next week or two will begin bombing Iran. Officially, Trump is saying no right now, but we'll see how that goes.
This was conducted. This was an internal investigation, obviously, and it's already been mentioned that there were leads that could have been followed, should have been followed, that weren't. That might be in subsequent reports. Is it enough? And I guess this sort of goes on. We were just asking. Are you all satisfied with this being an internal investigation, or should this be referred out?
Well, I think it has to be referred out. You know, the LNC cannot, they do not, this whole thing that she doesn't have the means to pay. We don't know that. That Kennedy organization, the Rescue the West organization that she was a co-founder of, brought in over $1 million. We don't know what assets her or Austin has. They may not have much. We don't know what property they own, and we can't get access to that. We don't have subpoena power to go in there. This is an internal investigation. That's fine. No forensic auditor could have, found her personal finances. The state can actually find that. The state can determine if she has the assets to pay it back, if there should be punitive damages. And furthermore, she's talking about doing this all over again. She's still out there planning her next moves to come right back into the party, probably so she can get hired again. this is still a risk. She could put, I don't think she can win chair now, but she could put a proxy as chair that hires her or Austin or another LLC. And we already determined that there's about 4 or 5 members still on the LNC that are talking to her, that are defending her, and that are organizing with her. That they would be happy. They don't have a problem with embezzlement. The embezzlement caucus. This is ridiculous, and they will continue to do this until they're dealt with, in a criminal manner, I believe.
No. That's just fake news. Okay, we're just lolberts who are addicted to losing, and we just want to have the Libertarian Party to be the party of autists who have an elite social club and blah blah blah, whatever usual talking points.
And there is another point too. We had this issue that happened in Iowa. Embezzlement happened. The state party chair embezzled, stole $10,000.
Right,
yes, their charges were filed against him over $10,000. We're talking about a lot more than that. So it can happen. The state can get involved in these things. Whether or not we collect on it, whether we get a pro bono lawyer, I'm less concerned about the money at this point as the reputation, sending a message so this doesn't happen again.
Right. And I think that
we do not want another person deciding, oh, hey, look, it looks like I can run for chair and they can't actually do anything if I engage in financial self-dealing.
Yeah, it was always my plan.
Be sure that this does not, in addition to some obviously needed bylaws changes to make sure this never happens again, we need to send a message that this is not going to happen again because, as has been pointed out, this is also, people are not going to want to donate to the Libertarian Party if they have reason to believe that the money is just going to go into somebody's pocket.
Yes. And I think there's a risk here that people will say, oh, let's not make this so public, right? Because we don't want to air our dirty laundry. And I don't know if it was you, Jake, or someone else who said, if you don't air your dirty laundry, you never get clean. Like, you need to, on occasion, make it clear, this is what we stand for, this is what we don't, this is whom we're casting out, right? Because otherwise it's allowed to continue. We actually are able to hang to put a lantern on the problem and say, here's something that went wrong, we're fixing it.
Well, and how far does this go? I mean, it's the question I always bring up, and it may seem extreme, but we have organizations in this country, nonprofits, where sexual abuse has happened. People have been raped, molested, and it has been covered up. Once you allow this rot to start an organization, there is no limit. There are even organizations where people have been murdered to protect the integrity of the organization because they went against the narrative. Mm-hmm. These are extreme examples, but they happen. And it's when we don't stop stuff like this, which is still big, not at those levels, it can get to that point. And there's other liberty organizations where people have been physically harmed, assaulted, and it was all done to protect the board of directors, to protect people in the executive positions that they had because they were doing a good job. And I say we can have zero tolerance for that. And when it comes to embezzlement, maybe a less serious of a crime, but it's still a serious crime. And we need to have zero tolerance for all of this and stand on principle.
And so you all know, Kyle and I are in bylaws on the bylaws committee for Grand Rapids 2026, the Grand Rapids Resolution, and we want suggestions for bylaws, for changes to this. Obviously, we have our own. Obviously, we have another entire, an entire packet of bylaws proposals that were never heard that we need to go through. But we want to hear from you all what you think the party's next moves should be in terms of bylaws. So please let us know about that sort of thing in LP Alliance, in the Discord, write articles for the Torch about it, put it in the comments, because we really do care about this being your party, about this being our party. And that starts with asking for all the input that we can get from intelligent folks who care, and that is all of you. I don't know if you're intelligent. I'm assuming that you are because you're watching this. You could have just stumbled across it, however. We do know as well. What?
Like me.
Yes. Yeah, you're just here.
Yeah, you just kind of stumbled your way into one of the board members of LP Alliance.
Yeah, you kind of felt
I stumbled my way into a board member?
Yeah, we just kind of
it was me. He stumbled his way into me.
I mean,
and
then he just kind of tolerate you here.
Right. No, yes, Rob, you're not intelligent. But at any rate, one thing that was passed as well was a motion to basically declare Angela McArdle unfit for future office with an affiliate, presumably meaning state, but it did just say affiliate, to declare her unfit to hold office on the LNC. This is, of course, not binding, but we did hear that she is going to be the chair, that she is the chair now of the Mises Caucus. How long does this last? This was the big announcement, part one. Well, part one was that she got bangs, and then she's the chair of the Mises Caucus. How long does this last? Is this a good idea? What's on the Mises Caucus agenda when it comes to its new, its brave new period of Angela's tenure?
Well, this was obviously she's been in charge of the Mises Caucus for a long time, right? They don't have like elections or anything. This was not an announcement. This was a way to distract from the report and just throwing out anything she could, and even doing her, weird announcements. These are announcements about nothing. They're not newsworthy. They're not anything new. It's just a distraction, and I've got to be the center of attention at all the time. And it's got to be focused on what I want to talk about, whether it's my board games or whatever else. But whatever you do, don't look over at that report. It's just a distraction. And that's what she's trying to do, is just to distract us all with all this BS news and updates that are, nothing.
Right. A lot of parts of those announcements were dedicated to the fact that, claims that haters and lolberts were just trying to undermine her efforts because she's done so much to release all these political prisoners and blah blah blah. But see, okay, so as for Angela being the Mises Caucus chair, like I have to wonder, I'm like, is it because no one else wants to be the chair anymore, or what? Like, did she step in and take over because other people are like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore.
Could be.
They're having a very hard time recruiting and retaining members as it is. And some state affiliates do still have active Mises chapters, but a lot of them have kind of started doing their own thing. Like, there's still a faction within their state affiliate. They're not necessarily taking orders from Mises leadership in the national Mises anymore. So, yeah, I can't help but wonder.
One thing that we heard during McArdle's announcement part 2 is that not only is she the chair of the Mises Caucus, she is now working with the MAGA crowd, the MAGA crowd for coalitions. To be clear, coalitions are wonderful things. Their single issue coalitions are important. A coalition is not when you glom yourself into another party or group. A coalition is about a particular issue at a particular time, and you work with that coalition outside the party, right? So coalitions are for outside the Libertarian Party, but when we're talking about what the Libertarian Party is for, that's for libertarians. Libertarian action, libertarian coalitions are for everyone. But we need to make that distinction, right? So McArdle is now going in, Mises is now going in, and very, very definitively forming these multi-issue coalitions where there's essentially this desire to sort of get swallowed, I think, by people on the right. I don't know why people on the right are going to come into the Libertarian Party when they already have the Republican Party. But apparently there's some thinking there. There's some thinking that, we have some leverage to force Republicans to give us concessions in the midterms. It's unclear what the calculus is, because by the numbers, none of this makes sense. What's up, Kyle?
Adam Balling with the pretty strong take in the comments.
There is that. Yeah, you can throw that
Right,
out there.
yeah. Single issue coalitions are great. Like, yeah, you work with another party. You may have very different beliefs, but you agree on this one issue, and you lobby, for example, your state or your local government for this issue. You don't then endorse their candidates. You don't try to make deals that you have no way of ensuring that they're actually going to follow through with, because you have no actual leverage. And that's the thing. Like, we can try to make deals with the Republican Party, but what kind of leverage do we actually have over one of the major political parties?
We
Okay,
successfully made Donald Trump the president of the United States.
You know,
It was the
even
greatest election.
even if that were true, okay, if the Libertarian Party were, like, for example, every election cycle, if they were pulling 2 to 3% of the vote, or even in a particularly close race, even just 1%, we would have actual bargaining power there. However, by deliberately undermining the Libertarian candidate and ensuring that we got, what was it, like 0.4% of the vote, like, we just destroyed that piece of bargaining power that we had. Like, no one's going to care about such a tiny number of votes. If politicians actually recognize libertarians as a major voting bloc, like, because we were getting 2% of the vote every election cycle, they might actually want to make concessions to us. I'm not saying we should sell out to one of the two major parties. I'm just saying that strategy might have worked if they can actually maintain getting a certain number of votes every cycle.
What's wild about this, and part of the reason I think that the Neo-Prague joke about the Mises Caucus is so funny,
the Mick Prags,
is that 20 years ago, the Prague Caucus started doing a thing out in Oregon where they would tell the Republicans, hey, if you will pass this bill or you will pass this legislation or you'll vote against this thing, you can choose somebody and we won't run a candidate for that spot so that the spoiler effect goes away. And so they were selling the actual spot against, like, that would be against the Republicans or etc., in exchange for actually winning something immediately. That is literally the foundation of the Rad Prague War. That is why the Rad Caucus was rebuilt. That's where the fire came from. Like the whole big thing, the whole war was because of people who were selling votes. And Mises, one of the big things they claimed was they were going to be more radical than the Rad Caucus. Motherfuckers, y'all are neo-Prags. You're literally running the same strat that everyone was mad at the Prags for 20 years ago.
And there is a radical way to run this strategy. And we've done it in Iowa before. What you do is you try to get as much of the vote, much of the media as you can, and you scare both parties, and they start to adopt some of your issues. They start to appoint people. You never give up. You don't directly have to negotiate with them. You don't offer them anything overtly. They just will automatically steal your positions. And it's been done. There's historical examples. Look at the Socialist Party. They got most everything they wanted by running candidates that were doing very well. FDR steals their platform. They get the things that they want. They don't quit. They don't let up. Now, eventually, maybe they don't have, they don't need to run anymore, but they didn't have to sell out and say, well, we're not going to run anyone if you enact this. It just happens. Give it time. Don't give away your bargaining power. Don't give away that one thing that you've actually got. And also don't align yourself with communists. They kept talking about this leftist takeover of the party. It's here. It's Mises Caucus. That's the leftist.
Well, I mean, I always have a ton of fun pointing this out because, like, their entire organizational structure was very Leninist. Like, it was basically democratic centralism, but most people have not actually studied the left, so they don't realize this. So
it's so wild. Like, I have to keep reminding myself
as communists.
Yeah, I have to keep reminding myself, like, they haven't actually studied the left. I'm like, that's just so crazy to me.
They just call they think communism and leftism is when gay. So
yeah,
if you post a picture of a rainbow porcupine, it means that you're leftist.
That's the thing.
I can't believe you're so left.
Gay. So many of us joined the Mises Caucus because we were sick of wasting resources on pointless things like ballot access chasing, thinking that we were actually going to get a president or a Senate candidate elected. Like, we thought that, okay, the whole point of this party, radical messaging, unapologetically libertarian messaging, in order to get more people on board with our ideas. And that's how you form local networks. That's how you get local candidates elected. And that's how you form networks and counter economies.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And-
they completely sold out on every single principle that they claim to have.
And it's funny because where we have been very successful with that post-mortem strategy has been, as Jake's discussing, has been with the gay rights movement. Like getting Republicans to move further toward gay rights was a huge thing that libertarians were a big part of because it was so popular. Yes, Mises caucus against socialist anarchists, but fine with allying with tankies that support anti-West militarism and oppose queer folks. That is correct.
So
Well,
I-
only the MAGA communists, which I have enough
Right.
contact with actual communists. Like they
tankies.
are pretty much universally hated by most communists.
He did specify tankies. So yeah.
Even
So-
even like regular tankies hate the MAGA communists.
I legitimately called Amanda the other day because someone was going on about how collectivist our strategies are, and they were pointing things out that were straight out of Stalin's playbook, and saying that we were like that they wanted to do, and calling us collectivist, and talking about how gays are collectivist. And so I sent back like the screenshot of the definition. It's like they don't know. Collectivist means Soviet communism. That's where it comes from. That's what collectivism is when they talk about it. Like, it's not always used that way. That's why Amanda is shaking her head a little bit. There's more nuance to it than what I'm giving here for sure. But
It's one of those terms that just gets thrown around
Ugh.
so
Yeah.
often that most people don't understand what it means. But
Gay race communist. I still haven't figured out exactly what that is. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but they use it all the time. Now, of course, you got to realize some of these people aren't that bright. They're not students of history or anything else for that matter. And so they just make up terms. They also don't realize that gay people weren't exactly treated well in Cuba, in the Soviet Union, and pretty much any communist country. They have some really bizarre issues. So it's a stand-in for the culture war. That's what they really want to fight, is the culture war. So communism is a stand-in for the culture war. Gay rights, I don't think they really care about. It's a stand-in because they want to be Republicans, and they want to find one issue that they can go right back into the Republican Party. And I say we
Right.
should push them to the Republican Party if that's how they really feel. This party's been pro-gay rights. Me and Jocelyn were looking this up since the 1970s, since we founded
since
it.
before we officially founded,
That's correct, yeah.
In the proto platform from 1971, we are already for individual relationships without government intervention.
Right.
Adam
And
Boeing.
72,
Democrats love to adopt our ideas, such as like drug
40 years later.
decriminalization,
Calling
pot
out the call
legalization,
hosts. Holy shit.
marriage equality. Yeah, decades later, and then pretend it was their idea. And most people, and yeah, now everyone here is libertarian and they think that we're all a bunch of conservatives. I'm like, no, we were the first ones to be advocating for things like marriage equality and ideas that are considered socially progressive nowadays.
Well, and they also forget that there were sodomy laws still on the books up until 2003.
There
They
still are
forget
in
that.
some states, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the
they're
Supreme
not
Court.
enforced until they are. Until someone who's politically connected has a grudge against someone, and then suddenly they're used.
Yeah,
Because
and the state's always used this. The state used this in civil rights of blacks and whites intermarrying. That was how a lot of it started. They're going to use the state to go after whoever they want to. Transgenders, it's always going to be some group that they're going to go after. And
Right.
libertarians have to respect everyone's rights, and that's what we're here for. All your freedoms all the time. Not, that might offend some conservatives somewhere, so let's not talk about it. It might upset Dave Smith. He might go vote and endorse a Republican like he's always done.
which is since we're calling it out surreptitiously, let's just be upfront about it. This happened exactly with regard to a tweet about individual rights, and I made sure to look at the text of the tweet. It said actually nothing about it said nothing like LGBTQ, but there was a rainbow. There was a rainbow porcupine, and as we know, people on the right get very triggered by rainbows. Okay, they're very sensitive. They're very frightening.
I
to
get
them.
triggered by rainbows too. There's only two
It's-
colors. People talk about 7. It's just you're all liars.
Yeah,
Very
this is
upset.
highly offensive to people who have red-green color blindness. You guys. Okay, be a
Rainbows
little more sensitive and less ableist.
are hate
Know your-
symbols
Check your privilege.
for conservatives, and we should put a trigger warning before we post a tweet that has rainbows in it. So there was a rainbow porcupine and some discussion of individual rights. Libertarians respect everyone's individual rights. And Pride Month is a great month to celebrate this. So is every other month. And said, don't tread on anyone or something like that. So there's actually no mention of the gay community, of the trans community, anything like that. There was just the rainbow. And the implication was enough, my good people. The implication was enough to upset some people on the right, who then took up to Twitter and made their triggeredness known. So as a result, we now know, as a result of this being posted, people were removed from the LP, I almost said LP Alliance, from the Libertarian Party social media. And we have screenshots that show this, that show people from various state affiliates going back and forth saying, who posted this? These people should get removed. Let's get them off the team. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Brian, for getting this done, right? And we also know that there was just a fear that this was removed partly because of a fear of offending people, which I don't know what to tell you. If you're afraid of offending people, you're in the wrong political party, okay? If you're afraid of offending people, you're not doing politics at the right time, and maybe you should never. If you're afraid of offending people, go be with the Democrats, go be with the Republicans. You cannot do political activism. You cannot do political strategy. You cannot do political messaging if you're afraid of offending people. I thought we were supposed to be radical and edgy. Whatever happened to that? Or it's only in the ways that some people like. We
Right.
can't talk about all of our platform.
If you're saying racial slurs, yeah, that's edgy and that's attention grabbing. And okay, we might not agree with your methods, but you should be allowed to keep doing it. But yeah, a rainbow, that's a step too far, because that's quote unquote collectivist, which again, there was nothing collectivist about that post. Like if it had said or if it had for example, given some indication that it supported state-imposed bake the cake policies or something, okay, I can understand that much because we are opposed to this action. But that was not a collectivist post. That just confirmed our support for individual liberties, for the ability of people to be themselves and to live their lives however they want. People who aren't familiar with the Stonewall riot need to look into it. This was an example of people who had been systematically abused and oppressed by the state finally standing up to agents of the state when they tried to break up a peaceful gathering and they tried to drag people off and lock them in cages. People finally said, you know what, we're not letting them do this to us anymore, and they fought back. That is libertarian.
Dave Smith is very upset. Are you going to read this, Kyle?
Well, so Jake linked us to a Dave Smith tweet here. And so I figured that it was a good time to let everyone see this all together. But I just may be too stupid.
Remember, everyone, Dave Smith is an ANCAP. It's very important that we keep this in mind as we look at this tweet, that Dave Smith,
Put the entire
anarcho-capitalist...
effing military at the border. I want the military at the border. I'm an anarchist.
Anarcho-capitalist Dave
gotta
Smith
have my military.
has some
working?
thoughts about the gays.
Can you see this one?
Why don't you read it to us?
That's
Yeah,
not what I
it's
asked.
too
I
small
asked-
to... There we go.
So this is in response to the Libertarian National Rainbow Hog. The fact that it was ever posted in 2025 is a disgrace. It reminds me of Republicans who were arguing that Saddam had WMDs in 2006 after the Bush administration had already abandoned that claim, which wasn't ever abandoned, for the record. We actually found WMDs. They turned out not to be nukes. Those are different things. You're repeating regime propaganda that the regime doesn't even push anymore.
And what is the regime propaganda again? Can you scroll up and read the tweet? Because I don't know if it says something about how gay people are better than straight people. What's it say? Okay, so he said
Don't
stop.
tread on anyone is what was on the porcupine.
And there was also a reference to let's see, there was a reference to individual rights as well. Yes,
Yes, there was.
right.
Disappointing because like I like Dave Smith's takes on a lot of things, but yeah, that's disappointing. Look, there was a time when I would have seen a post like that and I would have said, oh, that's just pointless virtue signaling. Like, we don't need to be doing that because like it's so like everyone knows that we're pro individual rights, we're pro live and let live, we're pro marry whoever you want, live your life however you want. I've learned like if you don't put out the occasional message like that, your party ends up attracting some of the wrong people. And then you end up with a party full of people who say that, oh, our presidential candidate is an abomination because he's in a relationship with someone of the same gender.
And there's a distinction to be made too that's very important that we should clarify for people who are just joining. That it is one thing to be edgy and radical on a message that is consistent with the libertarian platform. I don't even think "Don't Tread on Anyone" is particularly edgy, but let's just say that it is. It's one thing to be edgy in that respect, right? It's another to actually tone down the content of your messaging, right? To tone down the substance of your messaging in order to appease, usually it's the right in this case, by talking about, race and IQ or saying collectivistic racist things. That is not consistent with our platform. And so in the one case, you're abandoning, you can say whatever you want, but in the one case, you are using the LP brand to say things that are against the libertarian platform, but that appeal to people on the right or the left. And in another, you are being apparently edgy, saying things that are consistent with the libertarian platform. My problem with people like LPNH and LP Colorado is that they're not edgy enough.
Right.
They are very, very watered down in terms of the libertarian messaging that they put forward. But they just say kind of stupid freshman in high school jokes that get laughs from some people. And it's not even consistent with the libertarian platform. They are not standing by libertarian messaging, but they hide behind that cowardice by using words that some people find offensive.
Yeah, it's so cheap. Like, I've said this before, but the idea of not having a state of anarchism, which, by the way, is the logical conclusion of all strains of libertarianism. You can fight me on this. Like, that is edgy enough. Talking about how, oh, we don't need to reform ICE. We don't need to reform the IRS. We should just abolish them completely. We don't need a standing military. Just abolish it completely. That is edgy to most people. Okay, hurling racial slurs may get you attention, but it's extremely cheap. Like, it does not help promote your message. And there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. Like, you can be opposed to state imposed healthcare, for example. You can say, oh, if someone can't afford healthcare, they should just die. Or you can educate people on, for example, the fact that we need a free market in healthcare. Like, there are ways to sell our messaging while still being edgy, still being radical, but also doing it in a way that will kind of like help people think about things in the right way that is in line with what we actually believe in. Like, point out, oh yeah, this is a serious problem. I understand you're concerned about it. Now here's the correct answer, like in ways that will actually get them thinking. But but just hurling racial slurs or talking about racial IQ differences, like that's not gonna help your movement long term.
It's also
they
not
think it will because they
thoughtful.
think it will keep the wrong people out of their state where they're trying to build their free state project. But
Their
Like,
Free
yeah,
State
like, this
project
bull-
that voted overwhelmingly for Joe Biden.
Right. And Jocelyn makes a great point, says, I don't know that people know what we stand for at all anymore. That's so much of why LP Alliance was formed, is so that we do represent a lot of different aspects of the libertarian movement, not all of them. So we always need more people. That's why we've got the torch. because we are trying to explain, okay, here's what I stand for and here's why. Someone else might come in and say, I actually don't agree with that, and here's why, from the place of similar principles. So we go back and forth. We are trying to making it so that people are able to engage in these discussions and justify our principles and actually be this face and this voice that's saying, this is what libertarianism looks like, and it's eclectic and weird, and we are a party of principle. We diverge on policy prescriptions, and we express that to you. So no, I think it's very important that people do relearn what we stand for, the people in our party relearn what we stand for, because as a party, we do have to do ideological gatekeeping. That doesn't mean that we don't affiliate with people who are not in our party. Indeed, we have to, especially in our activism work. But what it doesn't mean is that we then bring people into our party without letting them know and discover what we stand for. And in our weakness, right, in our lack of solidarity, then allow them to warp that message because there isn't enough oversight and there isn't enough coordination of messaging.
Right. I mean, you'd be amazed how many people don't even know what our platform says. You can tell, like, every time the official LP account tweets out just a platform plank, and you have a bunch of people saying, I'm not renewing my membership now. I'm done with you guys. Like, it's like you joined the party and you didn't even read the platform.
Yeah, my late friend Lee Wright used to say it best: as long as we keep kissing Republican ass, Republicans are going to keep giving us an ass to kiss. He was absolutely right. And he said that about a decade ago. And I'm sure he's seen this coming, what was happening. And it was happening back then, and it's only gotten worse, that we always are afraid to offend the Republican Party. We're always afraid to offend the Republican Party. And it's always been that way. It was that way when the Iraq War was going on. You'd have some talk against it, but it wasn't nearly as much as what it should have been.
And I do think that we should be, I don't know what you would consider offensive, right? Because there's a question of, should we be offensive in official party statements? I don't think we should necessarily, what?
Broccoli.
Yeah, again, define offensive.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we should necessarily swear in official party statements. I would, but I think that we need to be radical on our message. We can't water down our platform, because otherwise, this is the internet age. Like, nobody's going to care if we say milquetoast things. Nobody is going to pay any attention whatsoever. That's why we need to be radical on our messaging. We can do that without using racial slurs, right?
Right.
Partly because that's collectivist anyhow. But there is a way to be incredibly extreme on messaging without doing things that are, I would say, offensive. Attention grabbing, yes, not offensive.
Right. You can say, oh, we just need to reform drug laws. We need to have less harsh sentences. We need decriminalization under a certain amount. Okay, people are going to be like, oh, so you're just Democrats. Or we can say, no, legalize recreational cocaine, and then give our pitch for why prohibition makes everything worse. Okay. Yeah, of course, there are always going to be the hardcore states to reject us, but they were going to reject us anyway. There will be those people who understand that there's something wrong. They're the liberty curious types, is what I call them. They may be like, oh, hey, that actually makes sense. And then maybe they'll look further into our messaging. Maybe they'll look into what we stand for, and maybe they'll join us.
Something else that we learned, by the way, when all of this tweeting came out and who was dismissed from what, is we did find out that Angela McArdle did not have her access to social media revoked until May. So the current vice chair of the Libertarian Party has had his access to social media revoked for posting a porcupine with rainbow quills. Angela McArdle did not have her access to LP social media revoked after the alleged embezzlement, after the alleged fraud, until May.
Look, it was only $50,000 worth of damage, right? So clearly that porcupine did more damage to the party, because there's no gay people exist, right? There's no LGBT people. They're not
causing a bar
10%
fight.
of
Okay, we
people.
gotta keep the peace.
Dave Smith was sad.
He had a very
You
frowny
can't
face.
make Dave Smith sad.
We hurt his fifis.
Yeah, they do get their feelings hurt a lot. But, you know, I'm surprised that Angela hasn't posted on there. She had access to it, and she didn't try to sell her board game. She didn't try to sell her makeup.
Crazy.
A missed opportunity. A poor business person. That's all I can say.
Maybe she didn't know. But at any rate, I look at this aggregate of stories, right? So I look at the vote against moving things to debate. I look at the vote, or rather the report on McArdle's finances, and just the lack of oversight, not as it was written, in the policy manual or bylaws, but just the lack of oversight, whether or not it was formalized. And I look at these tweets and who was dismissed and why, and people quickly taking things down because it offends a certain conservative faction of people who don't even tend to support our candidates. But they are loud and they are strong, and the people who take down these tweets are less strong. What I see as the pattern in all of these incidents is weakness, inactivity, irresponsibility, isolation, right? So this is not my job, therefore I don't care. I don't want to be overbearing. Therefore, I'm going to let the strongest voice drown out our principles. It is, and I've talked about this a few times the past few streams, because it is a lack of solidarity in the interest of unity. I just want all of us to get along. I want all of us to agree. And so we are not going to hold one another accountable. And we're not going to stand up for our principles because we just want to be one united collective. We're not going to be firm in what we believe in because we want to be unified. It is an abnegation of solidarity in the interest of unity. And this is a pattern that we've seen a need to correct.
Right. I mean, I understand completely. Okay, wanting to just keep the peace, not wanting infighting when you are in theory trying to get stuff done. However, yeah, if you give in to the loudest voices on this, you're going to end up with nothing. You're going to alienate tons of people who actually supported you. And okay, what do you gain from it? You get momentary approval from people who are probably just going to go off and support conservative Republican candidates ultimately anyway. So yeah, it's a bad long-term strategic decision.
And Jake has just pointed out that in 2024, we had no press releases.
Assuming that's accurate. So I'm wondering what the communications director did other than post stuff on Twitter in that time. I don't know. I don't see us doing press releases. I don't see us doing op-eds. I don't see us doing media interviews. I don't see us doing anything other than social media and getting offended about things. From a marketing perspective, I find this just incredibly dumb. We should be out there meeting people, and I can't tell that we do a damn thing. And we weren't doing a damn thing before Mises Caucus took over, very little. We were doing a little bit more. We haven't been doing a thing for a long time in this aspect, but it's gotten worse.
This is a thing that I want to point out as far as a little bit of the making sausage part goes, right? There are infinite numbers of news stories every day that the press can report on. As soon as the press in the 70s realized you can report on kittens stuck in trees, it was the beginning of the end. They could what CNN will have. You call it the fire department. They get brought down. So if you want things to be seen by the news, you have to be topical, you have to be timely, and you have to be interesting. That means that if something major is happening, 20 minutes ago or so, I guess it's more like 45 now. When we first learned about the strikes in Iran by Israel,
World War III is starting, you guys.
Yep. We should already be having a press release written as soon as it started to become a thing where this could become a thing a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. We should have had something sitting in the wings from a media team ready to go. And as soon as that missile hit, we should have had press numbers in the Rolodex. I'm old. So that you could go ahead and fire this off to say the Libertarian Party condemns this action, and to go ahead and say that the Libertarian Party is against the concept of the United States joining into this.
Which is,
Well, I think the issue is that, like, I agree with you, but the issue is these are all volunteer. Like, these people have day jobs and families. Like, if we want
have
people who
staff.
sit there, if we want people sitting there watching the news 24/7 with various op-eds ready to go, I feel like,
yes.
okay, you're gonna have to pay them.
We have staff. Well,
Well,
we have
we should,
11 people who are currently on staff.
It's
We
part of
have
what LP Alliance
10
does.
times that.
Right.
True.
Um,
Yeah, we all volunteer our time for some reason. I'm not
But-
getting
We just
because
paid.
milked
it's
the
important.
shit out of Amanda.
I'm not getting paid. Maybe there are other. Maybe you three are, and I just don't know. about it.
I'm getting paid in Revolution. So I just keep telling myself one of these days.
That's how
but-
she measures it as revolutions per minute.
Pretty much, yeah, RPM, babe. But this is what happens. So when you don't have party strength in a right way, because this is people debate about strong and weak parties, there is a right way to have a strong party, and that is when you have national that works as a coordinating center that empowers affiliates, that empowers members, that makes sure that there is consistency on messaging while still allowing for independence of initiatives and amplifying those initiatives, right? If an affiliate does something that we want to magnify, national should have the resources and the ability to do that, to empower affiliates, to empower members, again, and to coordinate efforts. That's a good kind of party strength. That's what we need, not people sequestered in different roles. And I don't talk to so-and-so because that's not my territory. We need to be doing this on the national level, and we need to be doing this on the international level. We recently learned that we have had international parties, international libertarian parties that have reached out in an effort to collaborate and just been ignored. So now we're trying to pick up the slack there as well and reach back out to them as LP Alliance and say, let's talk, let's work on things. We are trying to get this together and trying to pick up where national has not. And it's a big ask. We love to do it though. And yeah,
Right.
absolutely. This is what needs an overhaul here.
Right, international coalitions, like that's the kind of thing that our party should, like, that should be its purpose. Like,
Screw state borders. Screw state. Who cares about state borders?
Well,
no,
Liberty
they
is
care
for
about
everyone.
they care about borders, and they are isolationist, and they don't want to communicate with anyone but
So
the Libertarian
go.
Party
the
members.
whole point
Exactly.
in the Libertarian Party was it was a front for education and, like, networking. Like, liberty should be something that everyone, no matter where they come from, strives for. We should be doing outreach to people in countries where they're living under an even more authoritarian government than we are.
Georgia.
We should be wanting to network with them. We should be forming
I'm right
counter
here.
economies with them. Like, this is how you undermine power structures worldwide. Like,
They
this
have
is what our
reached
party should be doing.
They have reached out, and the best that we could do is put out some kind of milquetoast statement like that. What Georgia did was bad. No, we need to be sharing resources, learning from successes, learning from defeats, amplifying one another's stories. Okay, liberty is not constrained by state borders. So I don't know why our
Amanda,
movement
Or nation, yeah.
We
national
don't have time
borders,
for this. We've got a
especially.
porcupine that we've got to fight over.
we
right
have
now.
a gay
We don't have-
porcupine.
We
See,
don't
this
have
is
time for
why-
these petty little things that are going on in Georgia.
This is why I joined the Mises Caucus originally, because, like, the Libertarian Party had been so watered down prior to that. Like, it had been, co-opted by entities such as the Koch Foundation, pushing a very watered down, establishment friendly, big business friendly version of our ideology. And, like, that needs to go. Like, we need to get back to our roots, start pushing a radical version of our ideas, and start forming networks again, and start actually waking people up to our ideology.
And again, this is so much of what LP Alliance means to do, right? On the one hand, yes, we're about the Grand Rapids Revolution. We're about rebuilding and revolutionizing the Libertarian Party. But that
we need
means
to hold the party so that we can use it for effective messaging.
making it an instrument for social change worldwide, that we can work together, right? We want to be that nexus if no one else is going to be. Hopefully, We want to get leadership in there and the LNC that are going to help us do that. We're willing to carry that torch, but we need help with that. We need assistance with that. Yes, there
Remember,
is an
y'all,
international
all it
alliance.
takes is spark.
Kyle said it, not me. I didn't even suggest that I did. Anyway, yes, there is nobody got that reference anyhow, it's fine. There is an international alliance of libertarian parties. And yes, Jeff is the chair. There are 21 from around the world. I believe 6 are former Soviet bloc countries. So, and they do very well, partly because I think when you know it, when oppression is that close, right? And I think we're becoming more and more familiar with it here. There is an international alliance of libertarian parties, and we need to be more active within it. There is also the thing called the Liberty International, which is different, but there's some overlap in terms of mission. When it comes to to activism and the work that we do here, we've talked a little bit this week about the No Kings protests, which I think we have down there on the ticker. These are protests. If you want to know who's funding them, you can go on the site and it shows who the various donors are. This is the sort of thing where we need to see state affiliates getting out there on Saturday, the 14th. And there are protests in every state, usually in multiple places in every state. I'm probably going to go down to Chicago because that's going to be the most fun. But
I think there might be one in my city, actually. So
right,
if you were checking out.
There's
So
probably one in New York.
Is it
There- yeah.
Soros? Is Soros funding this one?
I don't know if Soros is funding it or not. I don't know.
Data Republican actually did a breakdown on this, and there are quite a lot of like big dim donors behind things.
I mean,
But
it
fine.
doesn't actually surprise me because, yeah, I mean, major political parties do want to be able to take control of various protest movements and
this
effectively neuter them and use them
is
for their end. So
what
that's
we
not
should be
actually
doing.
surprising.
This is what we should be doing, but not neutering them, right? We should be using them for our ends. That's why we need to have affiliates getting out there and doing this all over the summer. This will be a hot protest summer. We should be organizing our own, and we will. But first, we build communities. We build activist communities and make these coalitions. And in doing that, get the resources to organize and lead protests on our own. This is the first step, right? So you get affiliates showing up to these No Kings protests. Again, if you're looking at that list and saying, well, it looks like a lot of leftists or it looks like a lot of statists, all the more reason for us to get our butts out there and take the reins. Because again,
Right.
we cannot be left out of this, or we're just going to get the same stuff. We're going to get the same poison. It's going to be a different flavor at the end of all this.
Right.
Showing
And
up
if
to
you're
No
worried
Kings,
about, oh, go ahead.
go for it.
I was going to say, if you're worried about ideological differences, like those disappear very quickly when you're actually in a crowd that's, for instance, protesting police brutality, and you're being tear gassed and having rubber bullets shot at you. You really don't give a shit whether the person next to you was more inspired by Rothbard or Bakunin or Lenin or whoever. Like, the constant purity spirals and ideological infighting is mostly an internet thing.
Battle
You're either
bonding is real.
opposed to the existing status quo, or you're not. You can work out your differences later, but yeah, it's an excellent bonding activity for people who are anti-status quo.
Battle bonding is real. Kyle's found this. Sorry, go for it, Jake.
Oh, I was just going to say,
Actual
the same
picture of
people that told
Amanda
us we had
battle
to have coalitions with people to rage against the war, although their site goes to some casino site now, are not promoting anything like this. They don't want to rage against the mass deportations, the throwing people over into El Salvador prisons without due process, the sending the Marines to California, the tariffs. They don't want to protest against any of that stuff. They just want to protest against the Democrats, and that's something that we're going to have to stand up, and we're going to have to show that we're willing to protest against everyone, Democrats, Republicans, whoever, whatever tyrant we have to protest against, we're going to do it.
And Kyle, you got a shit 80 grand on your face. What is it?
Libertarian Unity is live.
I know it is. It's live.
It's real bad.
You mean the website is up? Okay, screen
Yes.
share. Please screen share.
By the way, LP Alliance has now bought the domains for libertarian. For libertarian solidarity. and .com and .net, and that will be redirecting. Not yet. We won't lie to you and say that it's live. It will be redirecting to the LP Alliance website once.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
is-
this talk about a waste of a good name. Libertarian Unity, that should be that should be an
Look at
organization
this.
that's
No,
promoting
not a good
unity
name. Let
amongst
them have-
different types
This
of
website
liberals
cost
at
and
least
people that are
$9,000.
libertarians.
Let them have
Oh.
unity. I
All
don't
it
want
means
unity.
is-
Hold on.
I don't want unity. What?
Hold on.
Yes,
Just
Dustin.
a moment. So it goes through everything. We get down, and they're showing Hayek, which they don't like Hayek. Hayek is way too left for them. There's join and donate.
Well,
And then
sorta.
right here-
He did sell out and work with Pinochet later in his life.
Astra is the most used WordPress theme because it's free. They used the default WordPress theme here. And what they have is a website where they've got a link out to Ross's YouTube video, some low res ass, whatever the fuck, individual with freedom, thumbs up. Free markets, here's a shopping cart. Coalition building, lightning bolt.
I'm done making fun of irrelevant people. We have work to do.
I do hope
Um,
they didn't.
I
I do hope they
shit.
didn't pay whoever made this site $4,000 a month.
Starfield says they're going to be protesting this weekend. I think I saw. Let's see. Jocelyn says yes. Thomas is going to. This is all great. We have two tasks at least for all of us here. If we want to be Angela's top 100 hated libertarians, first two tasks: the No Kings protests. And second tasks, we want to do a freedom calls. We want to do a little freedom calls initiative. So today, the Department of Homeland Security put out an ad with a number you can call and snitch on your illegal immigrant neighbors. Now, doesn't that sound nice? We thought it would be in the interest of freedom if we had a day of just calling and saying hello to the DHS,
I'm
phoning
gonna
that
say
number.
right now. Do not send dick pics to
Don't
that
send dick
hotline,
pics.
Okay?
Don't
That is
swear
a
at them.
Very, very rude thing to do, and you should never, ever do it. Okay? We do not promote doing anything illegal or unethical on this stream.
Even if you just call and hang up, all right?
That's bad. Don't do
You
it.
can keep doing that. We're gonna have a Freedom Calls Day on Saturday. So when you get back from the protests, or if you're not able to find one in your area, which is not true, if you're not able to find one in your area, we're going to do a Freedom Calls telethon. We call DHS.
We need
And
to
just
get
say
the
hello.
message. We need to get the Freedom Calls voicemail and play that.
The one that's unintelligible?
Yes.
We'll be putting more information on this on our LP Allies Twitter page. But yes, we're going to do Freedom Calls on Saturday, as well as the as well as No Kings protests, and are very much looking forward to it. That was a lot of LP news. It intersected with society, right? Well, so turtlenecks. This is the problem with when you say that something is leftist BS, then you just give it to the leftists. This is exactly the issue. So if they're going to get most of their funding from the ACLU and Soros, it's all the more imperative that we be there and give liberty a voice there. If you don't think that the ACLU and Soros do a good job of representing that, then we don't want them to have that airtime for themselves. We want to be there having a libertarian presence and making connections with people, because not all of them are going to be like ACLU and Soros. We need to get behind this and make these people are giving us an amazing gift, right? By setting these up for us. We go in there, we take it, we work with it, we make it something that is pro-liberty. So let's get our butts out.
Right. Yeah, ACLU, I'm old enough to remember when they were still fairly libertarian. They've completely sold out. So we go in there and promote the message that they should be promoting. Yeah, we can get people who otherwise might have supported what they used to stand for.
I give the ACLU $25 a month because I haven't figured out how to cancel it. And every
God.
time I go to figure out how to cancel it, it's like, oh my God, this is purposely difficult. It's not
Yep.
worth $25 of my time to figure this out.
That's what we should do.
That's why I
PLP.
never sign up for auto renewal stuff.
Exactly.
They caught me on the street and I was
young and
soft.
foolish.
Yeah.
You didn't read the fine print, did you? You just clicked.
No,
agree?
it was like, please give us your credit card and sign this thing. And it was like,
Oh,
will
God.
you leave me alone if so? And when they said yes, it was like, great. I'll pay $25 a month and not have this interaction anymore.
Hey, you want to play a fun game, Kyle? Okay, what
No.
you want to find out your stripper name? It's just your mother's maiden name followed by your first pet's name.
We have gone through a lot of party news, and we yes, I ain't about calling since I don't have Vertifone. We could probably set up Google Voice for this, can't we? For Freedom
Yes.
Calls Day. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be giving you details on that and how to help us. It's going to be a fun day of nice civil disobedience, libertarian style. And if you're super introverted, you don't even have to leave your home. So what else, guys? What didn't we touch on? I know there was a lot.
Well, there's that massive new surveillance database, but
Yes.
it almost needs to be its own stream
It
discussion
does.
on its own.
Palantir, which is literally named after the evil thing in Lord of the Rings,
Uh-huh.
that like you touch it and it can, that is dystopian to the max. We will talk about that. Yes. Probably that will need to be its own
where
stream
the
next week.
CEO was quoted as saying bad times are good for Palantir because we build what was it? Yeah. We build
Bad
products that are
times-
meant for danger.
Bad times are good for libertarians because we have ideas that are dangerous to statists.
Yeah.
And-
bragged about like how much money they make working with the state and designing things meant for dangerous times. Yeah, that
With-
could be a whole discussion.
With that, go to lp-alliance.com, go to our store, get some cool flags, get some cool merch. We're going to be making even more merch. It's going to be great. Go to No Kings, have a libertarian presence there, make some friends, build some coalitions, and we're going to have a hot protest summer and join us for Freedom Calls Day, same day. Anything else that you all have?
In case you don't want to go to the website because you're bad at websites and you're one of them Gen Zers or whatever, here's a Discord link.
Yeah, go to our website and
We
join
have a
our
Facebook
Discord.
page too. Wait, no, Facebook is for old people. Zoomers don't
Yeah,
use Facebook
yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Do Zoomers use X, aka Twitter? I don't think they do.
I don't
No,
know.
they use TikTok. I don't think we have TikTok yet because
I'm kind
we're
of
gonna have to learn to
Zoomer-esque.
dance.
I'm a younger millennial. Evidently, I'm a younger millennial. Kyle's giving me a weird look.
Yeah, I'm like a
Um,
mid millennial.
So
you
is
can
she.
still convince. No, I'm a younger millennial. I checked the dates. I checked
Yeah,
the
I think-
dates.
I think the
Um,
youngest millennials are like 29 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That
just got
man
blurry.
is clearly 29. Jeez.
I'm a vampire. Yes, and get your affiliates out there. All right. I'm about to let everyone go unless you all have anything else to say. Join our Discord, Write for the Torch, get your ideas out here. And yes, he does. Yes, he does. All right, guys, thank you so much. And we will be talking with you through and on Saturday. Looking forward to hearing about all of your adventures and misadventures on the phone and in the streets. Until next time, we are the Business List.